kasama.
Alrighty folks, well welcome aboard the General Bailey. My name's Bout and I'm going to be your tour guide on today's 2-hour and 10-mile round trip tour here on the beautiful upper dells of the Wisconsin River. If you guys down here are excited to be out on the water today, just make some noise for me. Let's hear it. Alright, that's what I like to hear. Those of you up on the top deck there, you want to give me some feet taps if you're excited. It sounds like most of them are still there. Once again, welcome aboard. My name's Bo. A little bit more about myself. I'm 18 years old, just graduated from the Wisconsin Hills High School. In the fall, I plan to go to UW-Madison for mechanical engineering. Go Badgers. Also, you're born and raised lifetime local of the area. So if you have any questions about the river, maybe just some place to go out for lunch after this, feel free to ask away. Now, I'm not out here on the river. I do lots of hunting, fishing, hiking, snow skiing. Also play a little bit of music. I'm currently restoring a 1991 Mitsubishi 3000 so if you like cars, I'd love to talk to you about it. But that's enough out of me for now. I'll hand the microphone off to Jenna here. She'll get you started on the tour.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome aboard the General Bailey. I'm excited to be going out on the water today. These are some of my favorite days out on the river. But my name is Jenna. I'm going to be your pilot or captain on the river today. A little bit about me. I've turned into a crusty old river pilot. It's my 4th year with the Bout tours. Been piloting for 3 of them. I really enjoy it. It's really the best summer job anyone could ever ask for. However, when I'm not out here on the water, I stay pretty busy. I am a college student. I'm starting my senior year at the University of Wisconsin-Madison this upcoming fall. I'm starting nursing school, so I'm taking a 5th year. I'm pretty excited for that. I'm lying. But it gives me an extra year to be out on the water, so I am excited for that. I just think it's always happened for a reason. So I have minors in global health and health policy, too, so kind of a lot that I'm doing there. Stay pretty busy on campus and on their competitive cheerleading team, and I'm serving as their president this year. I also work at the UW hospital as a hematology and oncology nursing assistant. So I always enjoy coming back and spending some good old quality time out on the Wisconsin River. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. And I hope you guys can see why I come back every single summer. Now that is plenty about me. If you want to learn anything else, feel free to chat with me at a shore landing. But I do have a couple of rules to go over before we get too far off the dock today. Now we are traveling on the Wisconsin River. It gets its headwaters up in a beautiful little lake called Loch Butte is there. There it flows crookedly and diagonally for 432 miles before emptying out into the mighty Mississippi Over the course of these 432 miles, it does drop 1,100 feet in elevation, which makes it perfect for the production of hydroelectricity. It's a very dammed up river. We have 26 dams along the Wisconsin River, 21 of which are hydroelectric, and the remaining 5 are flood control. The very first dam built out here was back in 1909, about a block down from our home docks. It's known as the Kilbourne Dam. Now, when that Kilbourne Dam was first built, we didn't have much need for all that power, so they routed it down to Milwaukee to power their streetcars. Now it powers about 10,000 area homes and businesses. As we leave that hard-working dam behind, we'd like to think we're leaving behind all those things that didn't make Wisconsin Dells famous, at least to start. You might know us for our water parks, t-shirt shops, that upside-down White House. Those are all great additions to our town, but it's not what brought people to the area. People have been coming out to see the rocks, the river, and all the scenery you'll see on today's tour for over 165 years. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed as much as we do and as much as the people before us did. Back to those rules I mentioned that completely skipped over. The first is to stay seated or on a moving object. On a moving object, moving objects moving past us from time to time. So the general Bailey may tend to rock and sway occasionally. We don't want anyone falling over and getting hurt, or worse, falling over and getting wet. Now we also understand that sometimes this rocking and swaying can make folks a little bit seasick or nauseous. So for those of us down here on the bottom deck, just remember that the windows down here are open. But for those of you up on the top deck, more importantly, just remember that the windows down here are open. Yeah, so just lean out a little bit further and we should be good. The next thing is absolutely no smoking. This does include the usage of vapes and e-cigarettes. This is partially a common courtesy to those sitting around you, but it's also a federal regulation. We do have one designated smoking area at our first shore landing, the Witches Gulch. We'll be there in about 30 minutes. We'll point that out to you once we get there. Now, the last thing is just to be courteous to those sitting around you and be courteous to Bo. He's going to be going over a lot of information in the first 30 minutes. And I know from experience it does get really hard to give a good tour when people are talking over you. So I do ask you keep any loud and or cell phone conversations down to a minimum during the guided commentary on today's tour. There's plenty of downtime at the shore landings and on the way downriver for you to catch up with those sitting around you. But that's about all for me. You guys are in great hands. Bo is a phenomenal tour guide. He won Rookie of the Year last year's first year. And this year, I'm pretty sure he's going to be winning Guide of the Year. So we'll see. My fingers are crossed. So you guys are in great hands. I've actually had passengers get off and describe Bo as tourific. Tourific, yeah. Now, if you didn't like that one, I hate to break it to you, but this is going to be the longest 2 hours in both of our lives. So I hope you guys are comfortable, and without further ado, here's Bo.
In front of us here we have our first rock formation. Those are the jaws of the Upper Dells, those two large rocky cliffs out on either shoreline there. The first which just off to our right there is High Rock. I know, we're very creative. And it stands at 65 feet tall. That other cliff just off to the left there is Romance Cliff at 75 feet tall. So I guess High Rock really isn't that high of a rock after all. This is also the deepest point in the Wisconsin River, 110 feet deep, and the junction of 4 different Wisconsin counties: Adams, Sauk, Columbia, and Juneau. Now our next formation is up ahead here on our right, the second most photographed rock formation here on the Wisconsin River, and that is Chimney Rock. Might look like a stack of pancakes if you didn't have breakfast here this morning. It gets its name from its resemblance to those early colonists stick and mortar chimneys. Great example of the erosion here that talked about all our different formations. Now out in front of us here off to our right is our next formation. I'm going to ask you to use your imagination a little bit. Look into that flat cliff face there and look for the side profile of a man. Most prominent feature being that large protruding Roman style nose. This looks to the eyes and mouth there. The trees hanging down from the top almost resemble a headdress. Now that is Black Hawk's profile, named after Chief Black Hawk, a notable member of the Fox and Sac Native American tribes. Now the sandstone here that makes up our cliffs and formations is incredibly special. You folks might even say that it rocks. Oh, tough crowd. So Potsdam or Cambrian sandstone. It's only found in 4 places in the entire world. The first of which being Potsdam, Germany, where it gets its name from. It's also found in Zurich, Switzerland, and upstate New York. And the largest deposit, well, that's right here in the Dells area. Geologists say it's just over 650 million years old, making it one of the oldest exposed layers of bedrock on the face of the planet, being deposited here when the Cambrian Sea receded and left behind all those built-up layers of flat silt and sand, which then hardened into the rock that you see here today. Now, this unique formation gave it a couple of very special qualities, the first of which being that it is very soft. If you were to take a piece of that sandstone in your hand, you can actually crumble it back down into grains of sand from which it came. You'll even see trees growing directly into the sandstone here along our banks, and their roots can extend 30 to 40 feet deep into the rock. It's also very porous in nature, allowing it to hold on to water very well, creating a micro-cooling effect here on the river, dropping the temperature about 5 degrees from the rest of the dells up to 10 to 15 degrees. Our first shore landing, Witch's Gulch. It feels great on a very hot summer day. Now I want you to take a moment to kind of notice the color of water that we're on here today. First look off to your left there and look into that water and notice the color of it. Then look off to your right and notice the color of that water over there. One more time for good measure, just look off to the left there again and look at the color of that water. You'll see that it's actually the same color on both sides. But you might have noticed that kind of darkish brown bricky coloration of the Wisconsin River. And no, that's not due to pollution or runoff water. So the Wisconsin River is one of the cleanest in the nation. It's actually due to a little compound called tannic acid. Further upstream from here, the river flows through a series of tamarack swamps. And those tamarack trees secrete tannins or tannic acid through their roots and bark into the water, dyeing it that kind of darkish brown color. Now, tannic acid might sound scary, but I can assure you folks, it is completely harmless. It's many of the foods and beverages you consume every single day. If your breakfast was a little bit like mine here, maybe you had some form of a Snickers bar. Or if your breakfast was like Jen on our pilots here, maybe you had some in the form of some Jack Daniels whiskey. Now, we do have a pretty rare wildlife sighting out here on the tour today. If you look out in front of us there off to our left into that tree line, you're going to see one tall tree that sticks out from the rest. On a bare branch up there, there's actually a bald eagle sitting. Once again, up ahead off to the left in that tree line, one tall tree that sticks out. There's a bald eagle on that bare branch up there. Now, off to our left here, you'll see that the river forks two different channels here. We're going to stick to this main channel here, but that other channel back there is the old riverbed. It's a lot shallower and there's not too much to see. So unless you want to push this 30-ton boat off of the sandbar, I think we're going to stay right where we're at. However, this split in the river does make up Black Hawk Island off to our left here, the largest island here on the Upper Dells, and it's owned by the University of Wisconsin for research and preservation purposes. And that's for good reason. Every species of tree here in the state of Wisconsin, all 126 different types, right there on Black Hawk Island. Got its name from Chief Black Hawk, who I talked about a little bit earlier. It's actually rumored that he was hiding out there with the American militia with a band of his warriors as they were trying to relocate all Native Americans west of the Mississippi. However, that actually wasn't true. He was eventually captured around 40 miles north of here in a little town called Toma, and he never even stepped foot on the island. It was named after. Our next rock formation up ahead here off to our left, the Twin Sisters, those two large rocky cliffs that jut out into the river. The first of which we're just passing in a second here off to our left, and the second marked by that orange and white slow no wake sign. Now, like any twin sisters, we did give the pair of them names, the first one being Kate, and the second Duplicates. Yes, duplicates. Courtesy laughter is always appreciated. Now, just about here off to our right, past that white Bout, you're going to see a small cove back in there, and that is Chapel Gorge. Now, it actually gets its name from the thick canopy of trees that you'll see overhead back in that cove there. It almost resembles a church or a chapel ceiling. Now, the section of river that we're entering into here is nicknamed the Narrows. Can anyone tell me why it might be called the Narrows? Takers. Because it's narrow. You guys are pretty smart. Not too many tour groups catch on to that one, actually. You'd be surprised. And it's narrow, it's about 50 feet wide here in the Narrows. You can almost imagine like the river turned on its side. It's pretty wicked currents. Now, back before Wisconsin was known for our beer, cheese, and Green Bay Packers, we were actually known for our logging and lumber industry here in the area. Lumber raftsmen would chop down trees that lined our banks, mostly white pines, lash them together into rafts which could be up to 200 feet long. For reference, this boat's here about 50 feet long. And float them down the Wisconsin River, selling their lumber off at sawmills as they went. And the Narrows here, well, that marked the most dangerous part of their journey. You see, back in that time, this was actually a whitewater rapids area, as the water was 17 feet shallow due to that Kilbourne hydroelectric dam you saw downtown not being put in yet. As you can imagine, it was pretty easy to get dashed up on the rocks here in just a log raft, particularly this sharp 90-degree corner out in front of us here in Devil's Elbow. Now, as a result of that danger, those lumber companies created a new position called a standing river pilot to help guide those rafts of lumber through the Narrows here, most famous of which being Leroy Gates. It was rumored that he never lost a life or a raft here in the Narrows. He actually gave us what many consider to be our first billboard here in the Dells. Now, just up ahead here, off to our left, around this corner with those dead fell trees, you can see a small inlet back in there. About 10 feet off the water, you're going to see an inscription that reads Leroy Gates Dells Inn, River Pilot, 1849 to 1858, right up on the rock there off to our left. Most prominent word being river, which you can put down on the rock. Now, eventually, with the turn of the century and steam locomotives becoming more and more popularized, those lumber companies started to use those instead for transportation of their lumber. And Leroy Gates and many of those other standing river pilots were on the job here, so they actually decided to start the first Dells boat tours in the area. You guys ever heard of the Dells boat tours before? However, his tours were a little bit different from the ones we give here on the river today. You see, you go to this private dock and hand him 2 quarters. In return, he hands you back 2 oars. You'd then spend the next 8 hours rowing the boat of you up and down the Wisconsin River while he sat on the back deck underneath an umbrella, drinking lemonade, telling about his favorite stories and rock musicians. I like to imagine we're a little bit more accommodating than Leroy Gates was back in the day. Now, off to our left here, if you look in that tree line down near the water, you might see some trees with some neon green tips. Now, those are actually very special. Those are Canadian hemlock. and they are never found this far south. They're usually further up north, but the very unique climate here actually allows them to grow right on the Wisconsin River. That cooling effect from the sandstone, the convection currents that come off the river, drop the temperature enough for those to stay here year-round. Now, just ahead here off to our left, this is actually the end of Black Hawk Island. You'll see that old riverbed rejoins the main channel that we're in here. That old riverbed is a great spot for fishing due to how shallow it is. There's lots of very large smallmouth bass back there, and those can be 3 to 4 pounds. Now, out in front of us here off to our right, you'll see those concrete docks. Now, those actually lead back into Coldwater Canyon. That used to become the third stop on our tour, putting it just a little over 3 hours. Or for some reason, no one really wanted to take a 3-hour tour. And we use it for the ghost boat or on the ride back, which is Our next formation is up ahead here off to our right. That large flat slab of rock up against the cliffs there is the Giant Shield. So that's what it's only named. Natural high water marker here on the river. In 1938, we had record high water. The water is up and over the top of that shield there by 4 feet. Now, we do have lots of fish here in the Wisconsin River, 37 different species to be exact. Those include some smaller panfish, pumpkin seed, bluegill, crappie. We also have large and smallmouth bass, trout, walleye, northern pike, muskie, and even lake sturgeon. Those sturgeon can be up to 7 feet long and weigh over 200 pounds. They can be pretty special, so I have to say so. Would you believe me if I said we actually have an alligator right here in the Dells? Yeah. Just look out front there, off to our left. That's Allie the alligator. You see her sitting up on the rock there, waiting for her lunch to float past. Got her mouth open. Allie the alligator right there. Sorry, that's actually a crocodile. Now, when Allie's not eating them, we do have lots of wildlife here in the area. Foxes, squirrels, raccoons, white-tailed deer, mountain lions, and cougars, and even black bears. Those black bears are rather rare. Now, Jenny the other day was teaching me a great way to deal with any bear that you might encounter. First thing you're going to want to do if you come head-to-head with a bear is march on down to a hardware store and buy yourself a gallon of white paint and paintbrush to match. You're going to want to head back out to those woods there, look that bear right in the eyes. You just need to look for those bears can never seem to make over that white goal line there, man. The bears move forward. Sorry, guys. Well, that's enough for bad jokes for now. Put down the microphone a little bit and let you enjoy the company of the family and friends you brought with you. off-road buttons, and there was only pumpkin seed-shaped paddle wheel steamers that ran tours on the river at that time. Now, yeah, back into the small channel here, you might notice it gets a little bit darker, and a little bit quiet. We might even say romantic. Now, if you're seated next to that special somebody here in Lover's Lane, maybe just particularly attractive passenger, you never know what the dice. You want them to lean over and give them a nice, crisp $20 bill. So that's the best way that I found to show appreciation. Now off to our right, you'll see that private dock there, one of very few private docks here on the Upper Hills actually. That leads up to Chula Vista Resort. The Chula Vista meaning beautiful view. And I'm sure you folks can agree we do have quite a beautiful view out here on the river today. However, it wasn't always that way. You see, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, this area actually resembled much of the downtown gals and the strip looks like here today, with homes and businesses lining our banks, along with taverns and resorts, and even docks scattered throughout our waters here. However, that all changed when the Great Depression struck. Many of those homes were foreclosed upon, those businesses failed, and a wealthy man by the name of George Crandall came throughout this area here, and he bought up 1,000 acres of land for as little as $1 an acre in some spots. And he burned down those homes and businesses, tore out those docks, and replanted in their place 140,000 trees, restoring the area back to its former glory. Now, after his passing, his two daughters inherited it, eventually donated to the state of Wisconsin after some time with the decree that it never be developed, and now it is a state natural protected area, very on par with the level of protection that a state or national park would receive, or it's actually more protected. You see, with the state or a national park, you're allowed to get a camping ticket, a day pass, something like that, go back in those woods, do some recreational things. Now, this corridor of woods here on the upper and some parts of the lower dells is to remain untouched by human hands forever. You're not allowed to go back in these woods. One of very few exceptions is just off to our right here. That is the George Crandall Memorial Forest with two public hiking trails. Now this section does mark another short break in the commentary. Here we're about 5 to 10 minutes out from Witch's Gulch, our first shore landing. So I'll let you enjoy the beauty of George Crandall Preserve. water level about 17 feet, covering a series of low-lying swampy islands out. Now, the locals, they were actually pretty upset about this, as there was lots of timber out on those islands, and they couldn't use it as it was all underwater. So they actually got permission from the state to come out here in the winter and chop those trees off at ice level, use them for building, heating their homes, pretty much anything you can think of. However, when the spring came, and that ice thawed out, pleasure boats started coming through the bay here, they started to hit those stumps. Even today, over 100 years later, we do have to follow a special channel here so we don't run into any of those stumps. However, most of them are rotted out by now, or actually been dynamited away. Look out in front of us there, on to our right, you're going to see Holiday Shores. It's those docks that are lined up there. And that is actually a campground there. They do lots of rentals. They dynamited out most of those stumps. As you can imagine, on a nice summer's day, this bay is just packed full of things out here. Now, off to our right here, these are the sunset cliffs. They get their name from when the last rays of the setting sun reflect out across the water here in Standing Rock Bay. Off to our left, and up on those cliffs there, painting with a beautiful, brilliant pinkish orange color. Now, out front here, off to our left, that other rocky cliff is Signal Point. That was actually used by Native Americans to signal across Stand Rock Bay whenever any important ceremonies or traditions were started. Now, these two cliffs here do mark our entrance back into Witch's Gulch, so I've got a few things to run over with you folks. First of all, this is going to be about a 2-block walk in and out of the canyon back there. We're going to be exiting the same exact way that we come in. While you're back there, you might see a couple of different facilities for you to use. We've got a concession stand. You're welcome to buy whatever you'd like from there. You can bring it back on board with you. Just ask if you have any garbage. Use our garbage bins on our back decks here. We do also have restrooms back there if you walk all the way past the concessions up to the left. Up that ramp there, that's going to be where the restrooms are located at, and our first and only designated smoking areas here. If you walk all the way back past everything, kind of stick to the right, you'll reach the area with the blue barricades with red wooden stop signs on them. That is your designated smoking area. Now we're going to aim to spend about 15 minutes back in the gulch here. So I'll give you a little reminder that we do have to kind of start wrapping things up and heading on back to the boat. I just ask that you make your walk back into the gulch here pretty brief. Use those facilities that you need to back there and start heading back whenever you're done in that back section of the gulch. If you want to spend your 15 minutes looking at the concession stand, you're welcome to. But I think the natural beauty is on the walk back. We'll be exiting the same way we walk in. You'll get to see all of it twice. You're welcome to take your time on the walk back there. Now, as we come to dock, I've just got a couple of things to run over with you. Just take your seats and remain seated till we tell you it's safe to come ashore. Keep your hands, arms, feet, legs inside of the boat with you. I really don't like doing paperwork. When you come back aboard, just make sure to take the same seats that you have right now, as we don't want any bloodshed over our beautiful blue lawn furniture. Now, that's pretty much all I've got. Just enjoy your stay back in Witch's Gulch.
So this is our first stop on the Upper Dales boat ride and riding with families. And I'll see you later. Bye.